Hey, how are we going, guys? Mickey here from Cartel, back on the Gas Beer Review. Hope you like the new intro. I change them up every now and then. You'd see if you're watching the videos that they change quite often. Been a lot of name changes and just different sort of things thrown around. Time to start coming back to settle down a little bit, stop being so creative and just get on with the brewing and reviews and tastings of certain kinds. I'm going to do a double beer review in this video, so we'll try and make it as quick as we can. So the first beer coming up is the Other Galaxy Aussie Wheat Ale. I've done a couple of different variants of wheat ales over the years. The first being obviously one of the more prominent in the commercial and the brewing world is the American wheat ale. Definitely a sidestep or throw off from your traditional types of wheat beers or wheat beers. And I've done one or two other sort of Aussie wheat ales, and it was just a matter of trying to figure out different scheduling through the brewing process to bring us the best flavour. I'm confident this is probably going to be one of the better ones, if not the best so far that I've done. So the Other Galaxy Aussie Wheat Ale, 21 litre batch. Let's get this poured up. .21 litre batch, 3 litres of loss, 60-minute boil, roughly 75% mash efficiency, which is it's pretty good for the system here and the way I'm doing things. 26.13 litres of mash volume and 5.51 asparge volume. Coming in at a 10.57, we should have hit a 10.56, so we're a point over. Finishing off at around about a 10.12, 19.2 IBUs, 7.2 EBCs, 5.79% on the ABV scale. That's too high for the tolerance of the BJCP guidelines. We need to get it down to a 4.8 to around about a 5. Anything over that 5 is just nudging a little bit too close to being outside the scale for the beer, the guidelines. So maybe just an addition of extra water, maybe adjust the malt additions in this particular beer. So this one uses 2.2 kilos of Joe White Pilsner wheat malt, 1.8 kilos of the Joe White craft export Pilsner, and 1.8 kilos of the Cooper's Premium Pale Malt. Just 65 degree, 60 minute mash step 1, 75 degree for 10 minutes mashing out, 12 grams of Magnum at the 60 minute mark, and 50 grams of Galaxy for hop stand, 90 degrees for 10 minutes. Our normal sort of water profile and acid and salt additions, with or without. Anyway, everyone's going to be different depending on what your profile is or your analysis is for your local water, and certainly if you do reverse osmosis or the use of demineralized water, and you have your additions that are quite different. So I won't go into the additions there. Was calcium sulfate and lactic acid. The amounts are not too important here. Bit of a mix-up with these two beers with the yeast going into them. So I should have actually had 1 packet of SO5 for this wheat ale and 2 packets of O4 for the other beer I'm about to do. And it should have been the other way around, so just the 1 packet of USO5 for this one, because we want to sort of be within that that boundary, I guess you'd say, of a close to an American wheat ale using mostly Australian ingredients. and then obviously 2 packets of SO4 going into the other one. This one had a fermentation starting temperature of 13.5, and we just sort of free rise and controlled to a little bit over 15, and then we went to around about the 16.8 free rise to help with the diacetyl rest. That's basically the beer in a nutshell on paper, and this is the beer that paper produced, well, with the help of someone like me, being a home brewer. And the colour's not showing up particularly well due to the lighting in the shed here, and obviously the camera nuances as well, doing what they're doing with the beer in the glass. But it is a pale straw. I want to get that colour down to a lighter EBC. So the colour's good, it's well within. The glass stands up well against the colour cards for the BJCP guidelines. It's on the lower side of the card, and so it's certainly well within that tolerance, and close to the colour I want. Just a little bit lighter would suit me better. It's a little bit darker than what I'd get through a commercial version, but still good. In for the sniff. So the Galaxy, the 50 grams of Galaxy in a 90-degree hop stand is very, very much in this glass, very much in the beer, and I think it's a little bit too much. Reducing the amount might be better, and Galaxy quickly became one of my least favourite hops. I'm just going to move this barbecue plate. It quickly became my least favourite hop overnight due to its changes through the brewing seasons, and it was a very small change in the beginning, but it just, yeah, we went through, I've mentioned in other videos, we went through a short supply of Galaxy. It's not that the crop years weren't that good, it just so much of it got sent to America, and the Americans loved it. It left only sort of breweries that are contracted for the buy over the hop growers to have that hop in their beers. So if you could get it, it was quite expensive, and as mentioned, in short supply. It changed quite a lot, and it soon became, if not the top of my list for my least favourite hop. I'm starting to come back around with it, and strangely in the last 2 years it's probably been at its worst for a lot of people, a lot of home brewers, and particular people trying commercial beers that had copious amounts of Galaxy in it. It wasn't pleasant, and that's my 2 cents worth. But I feel, just off the aroma, I need to use a little bit less, maybe 30 grams instead of 50 in this one, in for a taste. Got that sort of sweet malty, not so much sweet, but that sort of malty, bready, doughy flavour coming through. The sort of flavour I would expect from a wheat ale, be it American, be it Aussie, be it British. Actually read a really good article on British wheat ales, and 10 commercial wheat ales, British wheat ales that were taste tested, and they all had different varying taste descriptors, aroma descriptors, and appearance in the glass. They all still got really good comments, but so vastly different from one to the next. However, 10 beers, 10 British Aussie wheat ales, 10 British wheat ales, the the degree of variance in them was huge. It was still nice beers, but that's quite interesting, because even the Americans, you go through the research, you look at recipes that other home brewers have done, you look at commercial type recipes that have been released and shared, they're also different. Some will have 3 additions of malt in them, as this one does, and some would just have 50% wheat, 50% pilsner. Some will have a 70 to 30, some will have a 60 to 40, and then the 50-50. And so this beer, I think, would certainly could do with less Galaxy and the removal of that Cooper's Premium malt, and then go back to help with that ABV, extra water, and from 2.2 kilos of the wheat malt to, so the mathematics, if I got rid of 1.8 kilos of the Cooper's Premium malt, that would give 2.9 kilos each of the Joe White's wheat and the Joe White Export Pilsner. Once that Galaxy sort of leaves the palate, and it sticks for a long time, and I think that's one of the harsh things about Galaxy. It's no good as a bittering addition. So any bittering that can be avoided through the use of Galaxy is probably a good thing. I think I've picked up bitterness just through that hop stand alone. 90 degrees for 10 minutes before chill, and that's only sort of 15 to 20 degrees off of your boil temp. So and that could also have a play in the colour of this beer. So maybe a little bit of scorching from the all-in-one brewery may have changed that. But get rid of the Coopers, I think. Get in there with the extra wheat and the Pilsner malt, and tighten down a little bit on, the fermentation and the mash steps to help with maybe bringing some of that extra bready, doughy notes through, and just so that they're dominating the hops a little bit more, not the hops, so it's putting itself into a hop forward pale ale to an IPA sort of ground, but it doesn't have the additions of those malts to make it that beer, so it doesn't balance for a pale ale or an IPA, but it certainly balances for a wheat ale. It just needs that a touch too much of a dominating and quite a harsh hop, being Galaxy. Other than that, I think I'm a lot more close than I was on the previous wheat ales that I've done. It certainly brings a lot more, and that doughy, bready flavour of the malt hangs around there. And once you get rid of that, as I was going to mention before I got a little bit sort of tangent, once that Galaxy leaves your palate, you're actually left with that malt, that bready, doughy flavour that you want from a hybridised wheat beer, being the Aussie, American or British wheat ale. Cheers. Okay, so that takes us to the second beer in this review, as promised. This is the Jamaican Me Thirsty Coconut Stout. This is based off of the Cooper's Extra Stout base recipe that I use for a lot of my sort of, I guess you'd call it scaled down versions of the stouts that I do. It's really good, I find, and particularly with the stouts, I just stick to that one sort of base recipe. And when I do my imperials or high ABV, sort of more adjuncting juice beers, I tend to use a lot more different malts in it. So this is also part of that, just trying to use up what's left here in the brewery before we restock with multiple 25 kilo sacks of malt. Get some fresh stuff coming in. You do honestly notice a difference in the quality of your malt when it's been sitting a little bit too long and there's been a slight fluctuation through storage with the temperatures maybe where you've got to store. It's pretty even here now the way that I've got it set up. So all my empty buckets sitting here now. The other bucket's actually sitting in an area of the garage or brewery that doesn't attract too much fluctuation. Get it poured up, we'll talk about it. So this one is a 19 litre batch. 3 litres of loss once again. Most of these beers end up around about the same amount of loss as others, as all of them. So 78% mash efficiency is what we sort of hit here. 60 minute boil. 25.97 mash volume, 3.85 litres of sparge volume, coming in at a 1061 original gravity and finishing out at a final gravity of 1013. 34.6 IBUs, 70.2 on the EBC, 6.3% ABV. So it's a good ABV for a sort of I guess it's like an entry level stout, which is around about the percentage of a Cooper's Extra Stout. So it is different trying to work out through the extra additions that go into beers like this, and that's colour's really nice. I had doubts when it went through the transfer. It was showing a more of a porter with the dark red hue, but it's certainly come out a nice colour. One finger, tan mocha head, really good. So we'll just go through it. 5.1 kilos of Cooper's Premium Ale Malt, 350 grams of Joe White Roast Malt, 300 grams of Joe White Medium Crystal, and 280 grams of Joe White Chocolate Malt. So as I mentioned, there's quite a few additional specialty malts missing from this to make it a scaled down version of something like my Rough Nut Double Chocolate Imperial Milk Stout. And they will have things like brown malts and other sort of specialty malts in it to help balance out that higher alcohol, bring through level of consistency and the balance that you don't tend to really need to worry about in the lower ABV beers. In the higher ones, you do really need substance, I guess, and the heaviness of certain malts to compensate, well, to balance off and offset higher alcohol ABV. It also used 200 grams of Carapaul, so that's an extra malt added to the base Cooper's Extra Stout recipe, which helps with things like that head retention, a little bit better mouthfeel and so forth, and it brings a little bit more, I guess, for a little bit of robust sort of background mouth and sort of feel for the beer in something that's a little bit light on other, be it base or specialty malts. 65 degree for 60 minutes for mash step 1, 75 degree for 10 minutes mash out. 28 grams of Pride of Ringwood at 60 minutes, 7 grams of Pride of Ringwood at 20 minutes, 20 grams of Hallertau Hersbrucker at 15 minutes, and rounding out that boil, we had 500 grams of 3-step toasting of the coconut. So we had a heavy toast, a medium toast, and a light toast, but that was 500 grams split over the 3 different levels of toasting. 500 grams of lactose was gone into this beer. That is quite a high amount of lactose to go into a beer like this. I like lactose in stouts. I think it does really help with the thickness of the beer. I've found, in all honesty, that different suppliers have different lactose. I honestly think it's a thing where the sweetness factor of the lactose is different from supplier to supplier, and without knowing, because they rebag it without knowing where it actually comes from. There's health shop grade lactose. There's, you know, just cheaper styles of lactose. I believe it's not all the same. It does vary quite a bit. I mean, I've had stuff where in Imperial I used 300 grams of milk sugar or lactose, and it's been extremely sweet with no extra sort of real additions to give it that sweetness. Really, just the colour factor for the specialty malts don't really change the sweetness of a beer. Mash temperatures, generally, mostly always the same. Yes, I've played around with making beers sweeter, more body, and then drier, and obviously higher alcohol content. But back on lactose, it's all different from depending on where you get it from too. It's funny how the price changes a hell of a lot too for ingredients like that. So total of 500 grams of lactose according to this. And the use of the 2 packets of US-05 where it should have been 2 packets of 04 SO4. The standard 18 degrees for 10 days for the fermentation temperature. That pretty much rounds out the beer. So we're going for a taste. We've had a look at the colour of it. The colour is absolutely smashing for what I've seen going through the transfer tube. And yeah, colour's really, really good. I didn't really have it. Maybe I thought that the lactose was going to sort of bring it into a more sort of creamy. 500 grams, like, yeah, it's way too much for a beer of this calibre. But we'll see how it goes. Chocolate, roast, slight vanilla, coffee. Coconut is just subtle there on the aroma. I'd like a lot more on the aroma. That'd be a much better sort of. To me, the aroma I'm getting off this beer right now is sort of not leading to me think I'm going to taste anything but a slight hint of coconut and plenty of milk sugar or lactose. Cheers, in for a taste. So that coconut is quite subtle on the aroma. A subtle amount of earthiness in the aroma as well. But what I'm getting is, and it's not too much lactose. It's actually quite good. And I'm picking up more than enough coconut for a 6.3% stout with 500 grams of lactose in it, with minimal specialty malts, and just the basic Australian ale malt, premium ale malt as the base malt. 5 kilos, 5.1 kilos of that. The rest of it pretty much specialty malts and adjunct going into it. I mean, it could be better. But for a beer, it's literally cost me to get, I mean, we only just got 17 litres into the keg, so not even a full keg, but I mean, I mean, Cooper's premium ale malt, it's $50 for 25 kilo sack, and if you only use a fifth of a sack for a base malt. J. White Malting's roast malt is like $5.50 for a kilo, and I've used 350 grams of it, you know, so it's, coconut was cheap. $4 for 500 grams of lactose, a couple of packets of yeast. It screams volumes when you break it down like that. So yeah, it's certainly a nice beer for the cost. Probably looking at $35. Bit of water, bit of electricity. And that would sell for what? $70 a carton. 24 beers. Twice the amount of beers for half the price. And it drinks good. Cheers.